Let me start by wishing all of you a very happy World Financial Planning Day. This is a great occasion to gather and talk about what financial planning and its future lies for our country. And nothing better than getting some of the very key things that are happening in our industry to the forefront of our conversations. And who else than BG Mahesh, who is in the center of all these conversations with the account aggregator ecosystem. So this is wonderful to have you, Mahesh. A very warm welcome on behalf of all of us. Happy to have you here.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
And along with Mahesh, we have Pramod Rao. For most people in our industry, he doesn't need any introduction, but I'll keep it short and tell you that he is not just the Group General Counsel for ICICI Bank, but Pramod is involved in a lot of conversations that are empowering the ecosystem, including, being on the Governing Council of Sahamati, where Mahesh is the CEO and co-founder. Welcome, Pramod, to this conversation.
Thank you.
I have Harsh joining us from his studio. Welcome, Harsh, from the fee-only RIA studio. Glad to have you here. And sitting next to me is my good friend, Vishal Dhawan. He is, along with Harsh, both of them are the directors of the Association of Registered Investment Advisors, the association which has been in the forefront of a lot of conversations in our professional fraternity. So welcome, Vishal. Welcome, Harsh.
Thank you very much for having me on. Pleasure.
So let me hand over the mic to Mahesh, and let me invite him to talk a little bit about the account aggregator ecosystem, so that we understand what this is, and then come back to how it can change the way we talk about financial planning. So Mahesh, may I hand it over to you, please?
Sure, yeah, thank you. And I will actually present a small slide. Because for all those who are not all that familiar what is an account aggregator, I will actually quickly go over it, and afterwards we can actually go over the points. First of all, again I would want to thank you all for inviting Sahamati, because we strongly believe the account aggregator framework is a very, very important part for finance. So it will become very, very important for all the financial planners to embrace this framework. At a very high level, I would like to explain that you have mainly three participants in the account aggregator framework: the FIPs, what the providers, where you have your your bank account, your investment, insurance, GST, okay, are all the FIPs, and FIUs are the ones who want to provide the service to the end customer, like you all, who are the financial planners who want to have access to my financial data, okay, to actually provide any service. And the one in the center is actually called the account aggregator, which is actually a consent manager. All three are actually regulated entities. The account aggregator actually has a license from the Reserve Bank of India, and any entity which is registered and regulated by any one of the four financial regulators, which is RBI, SEBI, IRDA, PFRDA, are the only ones as of now who can participate as an FIP and FIU. So I'll explain quickly why this is important for financial planners. So even now you all are able to service your customers, but you would agree that the pain points and the friction you have to access their data is very, very high, because you are going to depend on me to email, the bank statement or portfolio holding by email, the PDF hard copy which you have to scan, etc. But how about if we can implement, as of now, where I give you the consent and you receive all the data in a machine readable format, in digital format, instantly to you, and it is digitally signed. So the information you are receiving is actually for real. It has not been tampered with, and you actually get it. So which means you all will have to up your game, especially on the technical side, because all the data you get will be in a digital format, and you'll be immediately able to digest it and inform me and give me an advice based on data, not based on your gut feeling or half information which has been shared with you. So in short, you will have access to all the information. You will get a 360-degree view of my financial status, provided I actually give the consent. So unless I share with you all my insurance policy, all my investment, all my bank details, you will not be able to do a spend analysis, investment analysis, how much insurance I should buy. You are not able to do unless I share, which is one. Then, you are in a profession where you want to keep periodic access to my information. Say every month or every quarter, you want access to my information. So again, it will be painful that every month or every quarter you will request me to give a consent. So account aggregator has something called a recurring consent. So I can give a consent for 5 years and say every 1st of the month or 5th of the month or something, all these information should be shared with you. So automatically all that information will reach you, and automatically your backend can do all the digesting of all the information, and it can give you some actionable reports which you can share with me. So now the thing is, where are we now? I think most of you would have heard that we had a very, very successful launch on the 2nd of September. We have 8 banks who are already there on the ecosystem. 5 have already gone live, and since July they have been providing services to their clients, especially in auto loan, the personal loan, small small business loan, and also you have one of yours called FI, which has an which is under SEBI, which has released a personal finance management app. So you have all these apps which have been live for close to 8 to 10 weeks, and we are seeing an excellent traction. But even with these 8 banks, you'll be happy to note that already about 300 million bank accounts are already on the account aggregator ecosystem. And since September 2nd, many insurance companies and others are already speaking with us, and we expect by end of this year, even a few of them will go live. So, as I know for you as a planner, you'll see that you will have access to your cross-sectoral data in real time, which you will be able to digest and share, your inputs, with your clients. That's it from me, Rajesh, for now.
Thank you, Mahesh. I mean, as you were walking this through, I was reminded of our financial planning process. We start by saying, create a relationship with your client, build a trust, and then we start collecting data. That's like the foundation of starting off a conversation on financial planning. So as you were walking through, I was seeing all the aspects of financial planning unfold in the way the data can be collected, collated, interpreted by the financial planner, and then synthesized and provided back as inputs for a financial plan. So I guess this is a great opportunity for the industry, for the profession to understand that what ails us today, if that is the data or the understanding of the customer and the tedious nature of collecting that data and putting it together to service the customer. Pretty much, with the account aggregator ecosystem, so long as you are a regulated entity,
yes,
you are able to flow through with a breeze.
Yes, exactly.
I mean, that's amazing. So I guess probably it's an opportune time for me to bring in Pramod, because Pramod, you've been seeing this, you are with the bank, you've been part of the ecosystem in many ways. What are the other things that you would like to add in here, Pramod?
So I think, just to supplement what Mahesh was saying, I actually look at this as a big bang for Indian financial sector. The very fact that data will be available in a digital form, customer can consent to its transaction across the system and reaching another regulated entity, I think is nothing short of, innovative across. There is no other system this close to, making available at the customer's fingertips. I think the niceties, and that is where I've been involved with Mahesh, with Sahamati and the advisory council role, which is been to actually put in place the contractual framework which underpins all of this. I would tell all of the listeners, if they're related entities, including these, please do sign up to that. It is a given document, so you don't have to go through repetitious process of entering into contracts with the A's or FI separately. You can do it at one stroke in that common document. And indeed, to me, whenever I have to explain the AA ecosystem, I must mention, I always use financial planning as the example, right? That financial planner requires all this data and how this can actually assemble all that data without, as Mahesh was saying, without friction and in a digital format, so it can actually be analyzed, sliced and diced as your profession is ought to do. So to me, that I think is the biggest gain I would say that this system gets. While the start has been what Mahesh described, to me the end state will be an interconnected, interoperable financial system of all the data with insurers, whether with the AMCs, whether with the banks. And I think bringing it all together is a boon to especially the financial planners or the RIA community. And I think you all should leverage on it the most. So I'll stop there for now, Rajesh. I'll come back in again.
Sure, Pramod. Great insights there, and very grateful that you are looking at it both from a top-down point of view as well as consumer point of view, and sharing how things could evolve. So great time to bring in people who are in touch with the ground. And on the ground are two of our friends here on the panel, Harsh and Vishal. I would like to bring them in here and get them to talk about how are they seeing this ecosystem and these solutions coming out as an enabler and probably the next leap or a turning point for us, from a profession perspective. So let me bring Vishal and Harsh. Yes, over to you.
So I think, first of all, the best thing about the system as described by Mahesh and then, explained by Pramod is that we get an ability to really differentiate what a financial planner really does as a professional. I think very often for consumers, the ability to distinguish investment advisors from a financial planner tends to get a little gray and murky. And therefore, the conversations tend to sometimes be very narrow around investments only. In financial planning, the starting point actually is elsewhere. It's actually about income, it's about expenses, it's about liabilities that you might have. It's about goals, and it's also about investments. And I think what this ecosystem does is it makes it easy, for example, to collect income data, because bank statements are available at a click. And obviously, because there are so many banks who've already signed up, and I'm sure they're going to be much more, it makes it so much easier to provide access. If you look at expenses, once again, as financial planners, the most common thing that we do is go through a bank statement to understand whether the actual expenses that a couple believes they're running is aligned to what their bank statement shows, because very often there could be a mismatch in terms of what you think you spend versus what you actually spend. The third is, loans. I think all of us, talk a lot about good loans, bad loans, etc. But most often we find that when we talk to consumers, they know one number around their loan, and that number is the EMI. They are not fully aware of what is that rate of interest, what is the tenure, what is the outstanding principal, etc. Because it's that EMI number that hits them every month. And then you come to investments, where it's not easy to get all the information, because while mutual funds may have some sort of a setup already where using a PAN number or an email ID one can get access to information, trying to get the same information for insurance plans, for other places is quite a cumbersome activity. And I think what a system of this kind can do is really allow that conversation to focus on the financial goals, which I think is the most critical aspect, because that's what really connects the consumer with what his money or her money should do for them. And I think this ecosystem could potentially transform that quality of conversation, because you're spending lesser time doing data collection and validation of data, and more time discussing goals and what's truly important to consumers.
Harsh?
Well, I think, when I first heard about the account aggregation system, etc., it's almost akin to magic, I think. And this is the magic moment for financial planners, as, Vishal just mentioned. One of the big issues that we have is data, as Vishal mentioned. He's already sort of emphasized on what it will do for the financial planning process. What I would like to do is to touch upon another aspect, and that is the succession aspect. It's not something that many people think about at all, if ever they think about it. And a system where I can do 2-3 things. A system where, what in my old software days I used to call ADCV, the add, delete, change, view kind of system, where for every asset that I own, asset, liability, whatever it is that I own, is there a nominee? So that is a view. What is the status? Can I add nominees? Can I change my nominees? Can I delete them? I think that kind of a thing is sort of a godsend today. We know this because one of the things that we do as a service for our clients is a nominations audit, and that is it consumes a lot of time. I think this sounds, as I said, almost magical with what can be done there. Something else, one of the reasons we have seen that clients don't make wills is because, getting information on everything that they own in one compact place, which becomes an annexure to a will document, etc. So apart from nomination, getting that list together itself is, a big thing. And, something like a reverse lookup, okay, that for the client, what are the various assets, given a PAN number, given something, what are the various things that he has in the system. In the white paper that Mr. Pramod Rao has written, and it's very clear, the unclaimed assets are like 5 lakh crores, okay, more than 5 lakh crores. And I think a system that allows me to look at assets that I may have forgotten, as long as they are tagged with my identifier. Okay. Also, it helps in cases where very clearly the whole amount, very clearly, I think if you are able to, make sure that you've not really missed out on any of the assets that you own. Okay, I think that itself will ensure that, we have much less of this issue. So and obviously we need changes in law, which I think Pramod has written about in this white paper that ARIA released, about what are the changes in law. Can we sort of make, changes so that you can have successive nominees, the nominees become the beneficial owners. There are multiple, about 15 points that have been suggested on an overall basis, and specific points for mutual funds, specific points for bank accounts, which are governed by different laws, different regulators, and hence there are differences there. A lot of it is possible to be done by the regulators themselves, and I think they are very, very receptive. And something like the account aggregator will hasten this process, because this information is available. The ability to act on that information will also be enabled, we hope, by the actions that are there by this white paper and the various advocacy that ARIA is doing around that. So I think the account aggregator framework is really godsend.
Thanks, Harsh. I think as we speak, I am also going to do this reverse lookup for the camera, because we have to pan. It's a great time to bring in Pramod, because I think with Pramod and Mahesh, this is an interesting thing, because generally in a consent-based ecosystem, what happens is I'm searching for something. I want this, and I know that it's there, and I want you to give it to somebody else so that he can see it. That's my data. I've given consent. But here we are saying, I don't know whether you have my data. And can you help me know whether this data exists or not? So that's a very interesting twist that's coming in here. So I think I should go back to the specialists. Over to you, Pramod, and then to Mahesh.
Right. So Rajesh, to me, what indeed the account aggregator ecosystem Sahamati is enabling is certainly cup of knowing whether there is a nominee or not and who those nominees are. I think those are already use cases which exist. I think, I was only taking the case forward, and with the kind of reforms, the measures that Harsh was mentioning is in the white paper. I think the role for Sahamati A ecosystem will only grow. If I had to put it, if we actually do the KYC of our nominees, right, and we can encode their Aadhaar or their PAN number, etc., with the financial service provider, the reverse lookup becomes a very powerful tool, which is that I may not know. Can I turn around and therefore, through the AAS ecosystem, ask and get the data which tells us that, where all am I named as a nominee? It can indeed across the financial category where we have, which are linked to the AA ecosystem. And to me, that will solve at least 95% of any common investors' problems of being able to figure out this. The unclaimed figures, and indeed, I can see something in the chat box putting the figure at close to 20 billion USD. And indeed, I would say that those are lost. I think the family members were not aware at all about those funds. And to me, that again brings home that how important nominations are. And if we make the right nomination, do asset discovery using the AA ecosystem, get it either into our will, like Harsh was describing. And I'm saying if somehow people are hesitant about even wills, even having that on the record, having that in a file is sufficient guide to actually the family members too. And to me, that is the power of both technology. And when Harsh was speaking, I was reading this Arthur C. Clarke quote, which is that, any sufficiently advanced technology resembles man to those who, follow that technology. To me, the ecosystem is both magic in that respect because it is so advanced. And that advancement should be leveraged by all of us to, make sure that we can benefit both the consumers, but also their families. I think that's the thrust really the white paper as well and the various measures that we have talked about. But let me pause and hand over to my.
Thanks, Pramod. So, between you all, I think all the important points have already been spoken. But I would say that the AA framework is a very, very crucial, digital infrastructure, which provides the way for you to get access to the data. Now it is really up to this FIU ecosystem, the RIAs, etc., to build very interesting, use cases. As we can really see, a very simple use case, whether you have nomination or not, and who is the nominee itself is a very big use case. So this really not important for us to think that we need to get access to all the fields in the statement, all the back. We can keep things very simple and yet have very, very powerful and huge impact, which will help every citizen in the country. So, I mean, it is about that we spoke even about the planning when you want to write the will. Unless you give all the data to the planner, how will they be able to write? Which is one. Then also for the planners, unless they have access to all the information, they're not able to guide you what kind of either health insurance, life insurance, general insurance, only when they can see the, how much you're traveling. All that information will actually come out from your bank statement and a credit card statement, because you'll have access to the entire statement, and your systems to be automatically able to categorize it. How much are you spending on entertainment, the travel, your health, etc. So the number of things you can do with this ecosystem is, I will not be able to explain even in the whole day about the number of things you can do. And I would say that every planner, you got to embrace this ecosystem sooner than later, because you will see every 3 months, 6 months, the amount of information across the sectors, which is the beauty, which is the strength of this AA framework, will increase. So even before the entire ecosystem is over here, each of you should be ready. With applications, it will help you to provide actually better informed decision, to your customer.
Thanks, Mahesh. I should get both the practitioners here, because like you said, Mahesh, even I was also saying that if we had this panel discussion for the entire day, we would have started with, creating client relationships and downwards. Every single stage, how the account aggregator ecosystem can be substantially utilized for the benefit and the good of the client. So there's no doubt about it. So, let me come to Vishal, because, as a financial planner, I would see that there are various stages that they look at in every customer's story. And financial planning is a composition of, there are education aspects of the plan, there are retirement aspects of the plan, there could be liability removal, there could be some cash flow release, there could be various things that come in a financial plan. So I thought probably it will be a great conversation to have on, as we speak, and I'm sure both the gentlemen are thinking, how to leverage the ecosystem, and that should be going on in their mind. Probably, Vishal, if you are able to say some of the pain points, looking at the journey as to where you're getting stuck, where the clients are not able to give you the information you want, or you really want them to give it to you, but they are also stuck. They don't know. They might take time to get back to you. So the whole process is very, I would say, is also getting delayed. Right. So I guess these are some things that we would like to hear from you. And then I'll come to Harsh as well. Yeah.
Sure. So I think it's very true that there are multiple points at which the ecosystem of the account aggregator can actually step in and solve for. But I can think of three big areas where this can straight away help. One is an ability, if it exists, for us to be able to proactively go out and tell consumers that from your list of assets which you own, which is of course all captured through the mutual funds, insurance, etc., that you might have actually created over a period of time, which are those assets that don't actually have a nomination sitting on top of them? And can that communication go out directly through the system itself, saying that, out of your 11 assets, for example, 4 of them don't have nominations. Please go out there and nominate right away because you care for your family. I think that's a very useful, simple case where one can add tremendous value. And if your whole idea about doing financial planning is to help families, solve real life problems, I think this is a very, very real life problem that anyone who has gone through nomination and succession and the challenges it creates will be able to find. Number 2 is the collection of information in the case of certain kinds of products like insurance, for example. So what has happened is that over a period of time, investors have bought into both traditional insurance policies as saving instruments, as well as unit-linked plans. And what we end up finding is that it's very difficult to get current information on what's happening on those policies today. And a lot of it makes you have to go back in time to collect that information. And a lot of it is actually in the physical world. And I think that's a very, very big thing, because if you have to, for example, advise someone that you're underinsured or overinsured, how do you do it if you don't have accurate data at all? And I think in any financial planning pyramid, risk management is the starting point of ensuring that you're able to build a very robust financial plan for your investor. The third case is actually on the planning for specific goals that might come up. And I think what ends up happening is that very often we come across investors having already created these kind of buckets in their mind of saying that my retirement is sorted because I have an employee provident fund, for example, or I contribute to the NPS, even though that may be a very, very small percentage of what might be actually required to take care of retirement. And I think what that data does, if it's been given very quickly and in a very efficient manner and accurate manner, allows one to really enhance financial literacy and that conversation about how much is enough, why is what you're thinking not enough, how should you be thinking about inflation. I think all of those conversations are very valuable. I think today what we find is that by the time investors have given all the data, and even when we talk about all data, most of the time somewhere at about 80%, one kind of gives up and says, I think this is enough. But even at 80%, I think a lot of investors tend to believe that, oh, now that I've given all the data, the problem is solved. Actually, that's only the starting point. All the work has to happen from here. And therefore, if we can spend our time, energy, resources, everything doing that, I think we'll have much more happier and contented customers.
Harsh?
Yeah, so I think Vishal explained the many uses that this account aggregator framework would help in the financial planning. Couple of areas also sort of suggest themselves to me. One, we have this experience, and I'm sure a lot of my fellow professionals share this, that clients have very little, a lot of clients have very little consciousness of how much they are spending. We have had clients where the initial data seems to suggest a figure of X, But when we actually run through and have implemented the plan for about 6 months, we figure out that it's not X, it's actually 2.5X. I mean, as much of a factor as that. That appears plausible. We have had clients who are also, not so conscious about their income. So expenditures one can think about, but even income. So I think this bank data, the transaction data, is extremely useful for generating consciousness. And I think generating consciousness is the first step towards, being aware, and being aware is the first step towards taking action on that if it is warranted, making a plan and taking action on it if it is warranted. So I think being aware is the key, which the account aggregator framework really would help. The other thing it helps dramatically is that it helps in ongoing reviews. So this is not a one-time process. The plan is not written in stone, right? It is something, as life goes along, the plan needs to change. And I think by providing access with client's consent, of course, to the ongoing data, I think the review, and if something is going wrong, there is an early alert. You don't really have to wait for a client to inform you, because when something is happening, he may not really inform you first. The data would alert you if you have the client's consent, and the data is coming to you automatically. And I'm sure softwares will come up in the back that will sort of massage that data and be able to give actionable inputs to both planners as well as clients. So I think, as I said, I mean, I think that's a cliche, right? That the data is the new oil. I think this oil is what, this oil for the first time is going to be available to the person who owns it, and that is the individual. I think that is the big difference. So it is my data that, a search engine uses, that a shopping site uses to look at my behavior, track my behavior, sell more things to me, give me more relevant results, etc., etc. But now the account aggregator framework ensures that the individual is able to use his data to get professional help, to be able to make his life better. Because at the end of the day, that is what, as financial planners, we do. We help our clients enjoy their life because they feel more safe and secure on their journey.
So again, reverse lookup in progress. Thanks, Harsh, for sharing this, and Vishal as well. Please pardon us, we haven't followed social distancing today, but this is, we consented that we have taken both the doses and we are clear. RT-PCR also done for the records. So, now that we are here, I guess we've all got our conversations going. I know that, having spent more than a decade and a half with financial technology, if I were, right now I'm so happy that I can play the enablers role and, maybe tag along and put one hand over Mahesh's shoulder and say, let's go running across the country and get all the investment advisors hooked on to the ecosystem. I thought, there would be a lot of interest in the fintechs to create solutions that can empower financial planners leveraging the ecosystem. Because by ourselves, if you ask me, be it Vishal or Harsh or anybody else who is part of the financial planning ecosystem, I think we are practitioners first. We are not the tech enthusiasts. We want the tech to support the practice.
Yes.
So I guess, while I wanted to reserve some time for Q&A for the audience, one key thing I thought, and there was a lot of interest and messages that came up yesterday into me saying, Rajesh, please talk about the possibilities of fintech solutions that can get created. I thought, Mahesh, probably That's something that I could tell you to address, because
Sure.
those are the huge possibilities that exist leveraging the ecosystem. So could I just take 2 minutes more and ask you to please
Sure,
share your
sure.
perspective?
Yeah. So like in this entire ecosystem, I would say the technology service providers have a very huge opportunity, because I would say that this is almost for the first time entities will have access to the consented data across the sectors. So now I think these entities, these developers of these the products will have to spend a lot of time with the planners, okay, to understand that what is that they want. Okay, yeah, getting access to the data isn't all that hard. Okay, everything is there, it is already up and running, we have already shown its life. But the actual work starts after you get the data, because the way each of the planners will interpret the data may not be the same. How they interpret for the one with the the salary job, business income, it is not the same. So this is something I would say that they need to understand from the planners on how they interpret data, and all of that has to be translated into the product, and then you will see that it becomes much more easier for the planners to look actually at the dashboard of each client and to be able to give very informed decisions. So in short, for the fintechs on their own won't be able to participate, as I said, if they are not a regulated entity. Okay, but they will be able to develop solutions, and give it to the planners. And since this entire field is extremely virgin in the country, I think 0.1% maybe in the entire country are extremely they look into how they are actually earning and spending. So it's a very good opportunity for the planners to use this ecosystem, because it's only with the account aggregator framework they'll be able to actually scale up. If they with the same number of the people in their office, if they even have to increase the number of clients by 10x, they'll be able to do with the help of technology.
Thanks, Mahesh. I am watching the Q&A, and it looks like everybody is trying to put their perspectives in place before they can start asking questions, because it is, like you rightly said, it is such a virgin area, such a virgin territory. What do you say? It's a blue ocean that it's going to take zillions to make it red. So before which, I guess it's a moment of truth for the entire financial planning fraternity. But then, because we have another 10-14 minutes left for this conversation, I wanted to hop back to Pramod. Because the way I look at Pramod is he's also got that helicopter view, right? Very clearly, he's been looking at the banking side, the ecosystem of the account aggregators, been on so many panels looking at how things can improve for India. One of the things I picked up from the white paper, thanks to ARIA and him, was particularly around the issues connected to nominations and the connected areas of succession related planning, which we have already spoken in brief in the earlier chat. But I thought, Pramod, since KVK also gave us a perspective, if you want to do something, do it in 90 days. I thought probably let me ask you whether would it be a great idea to start talking about a closed user group, set of financial planning professionals, including our volunteers from ARIA. The board can get involved from our perspective to bring in what could be the practice standards, because we want to standardize some of the communication. So we could connect with Sahamati. Sahamati on its own, would have technology service providers and the account aggregators per se. So there are some 5 or 6 players. And then we have somebody like you who could also tell us, let's do some advocacy and get things moving. So if I were to throw that, I know it's not part of the planned conversation that we had, but if that was the question I wanted to ask,
No,
how
no,
would
no,
you like?
Rajesh, wonderful question. And indeed, once Mr. Kamath spoke, and as Harsh also said, back full memory how the 90-day operated in ICICI. I think if I had to, break out the 15 odd recommendations that one put together on the white paper, I would tend to believe more than half are probably financial institutions, banks, etc., can start implementing right away. We don't necessarily need regulatory intervention. And indeed, there will be the balance will require regulatory intervention, and one item will require even the legislature to, sort of. To me, what you are suggesting is indeed shorten that 90. If indeed we can say this is what a form should look like, and if that form also has to cater to percentage allocation of assets, if that form has to cater to multiple nominees, not just restricted to one or three as certain as can also go to beyond that. So each of that to my mind is the way to really think about what we can do in the interim, and indeed the early adopters who can even encode it into their websites or their mobile apps for it to become easier for their financial consumers. And to me, it will be both a human service, equally something which ties in well for, prepare the families for what lies ahead, because it is an era of uncertainty. But in that era of uncertainty, death is certainty, right? It's only about whether it happens tomorrow or 10 years later. And preparing for it right away is probably, what all can come together and do. And quite happy to, be a part of the cross-sectional thing which you described. Already with ARIA, I've done the white paper which I do work. And if the board also throws its hat into the ring, I am very happy to, be part of that group, that cohort. Equally, Rajesh, even as questions probably are being thought of by the participants, I thought I should just add a couple of things to, what I heard both Vishal and Harsh about, which is as a consumer of financial planning. And I think I wanted to, sort of highlight that there are various times, yes, when we start hearing about what is the information ahead, right, is the biggest moment of pause which happens between the conversations. Because we are actually running helter-skelter, trying to assemble that data, right? It is lying in disparate places. That's when we realize, oh, I gave my personal email ID for the purpose, official for this, and something else for a third asset class. And that view is half the time that, people don't follow through on the conversations they might have begun. And the A ecosystem has great ability to, sort of make sure it comes, almost within minutes, even as the conversation has started. So I think that is the power which really consumer is possible. As I was reflecting on what else, as just wrote, being able to assess, okay, nominated these three people, need to change that. In fact, I was listening to somebody else, and what I realized is that, for instance, it happened to me as well. When you begin your career, you are unmarried and so on. So you might name your parents as a nominee, right?
Yeah.
Do you actually go forward and change that as you get married, as your life stages evolve? And I think several of us need to, use this technology now and what it promises to be. I think equally what Mahesh answered, and indeed it's an opportunity both for fintech providers and for all of the members of the board or ARIA, get involved with the ecosystem, because that's how you will be able to shape what technology emerges and what solutions emerge. Because people may not fully understand it. And those that embrace the ecosystem will have somewhat of a first mover advantage. Finally, everything will get off. To my mind, that advantage is not a to be dismissed kind of thing. And frankly, that was also the reason why the 90-day rule was adopted by Mr. Kamath. To him, it that, there are so many others who are equally trying, and those who get to the market first with something which is hopefully working and working well is what will win you customers. So I would intend that this is leveling the playing field, giving a whole amount of data for as a consumer, as a provider, and so on. And I think I can see from at least the vantage point I have that we are all excited about this ecosystem for that reason. That we will be able to have customer centricity at a level which is not been seen in the past, and hopefully allows us to service them better. Let me pause here and back to you.
Yes.
If there are further questions that have come in, I'm happy to take them on. They are directed.
Sure, Pramod. Thank you so much for these perspectives, because this is all I can see it coming straight from the heart. A consumer experiencing it, a friend experiencing it, a family member experiencing it. That's what I saw from you as you were speaking. But that brings me to another point, although the question has come here, is that, I think we are all fixated to solving issues that are pertaining to a financial transaction. How focused are we as an industry to solve issues pertaining to non-financial transactions? And I guess, nomination is one clear thing that we spoke today. But are there any other challenges? Let me just ask Vishal and Harsh also to chip in here. From a non-financial transaction point of view, are there things that are coming up which possibly we go back and reflect on whether there is a solution out there for the account aggregator ecosystem to provide us? So are there some of those any challenges coming in the non-financial perspective?
So I think what comes top of mind here is straight away standardization of data, right? I think, let's say when you go through an address change, something as basic as that, and I think at different points in the life stage of every consumer, he's likely to move from, a stage where he was living in rented homes and changing them every year to finally, getting a house of his own, to finally upgrading the house to something even better. And each of these, stages means that he's expected to go back and communicate this to every single entity that he might have touched in the past and had some sort of money with, and now communicate this change. And especially during the rental phase, by the time you finish that communication, you're already out there going again and moving to your next location. So something as basic as ensuring that you have correct data updated can actually come in here and get solved, because if you can plug in this data in a singular place and that information is now available for everyone to use, the KYC systems are obviously trying to do this in a different manner. Then what ends up happening is the current nature of the data straight away gets a lot of value. You see the same thing happen with email IDs. Right? A lot of people use their official email IDs for a lot of communication because their technology in offices may not allow them access to personal information for security reasons. And what then ends up happening is if you keep moving jobs every few years, all your data now starts to get kind of muddled up because you're not able to see all of it and you forget a lot of it. And that's why, there's so much of this forgotten data as well, besides just succession. So I think the way we look at it is these are two very simple use cases which an account aggregator system can make very simple for the end consumer to end up solving. And a lot of times we've seen consumers come back to us and tell us, let's not talk about investments. Let's solve the address or the email ID problem first, because for me, that is more important. While you might think that, let's get the investments, off the block is more important. And I think it just ensures that everyone's speaking the same language and we're not spending time on updating that address or that email ID. We're much more spending time having those conversations saying, how do we move forward to kind of get to where we want to get to?
Harsh?
As Vishal was speaking, I was just thinking, and then I sort of struck down what I was going to say. But let me make an attempt, and I don't know whether it will fit within the account aggregator framework, which is one of the things that all clients look for is benchmarking. You're always benchmarking to peers, you're benchmarking to, somebody you look up to, etc. Right? And I understand that the account aggregator framework will not store any data. Okay, so I mean, that at least is my understanding of how the account aggregator framework works. So if that benchmarking is enabled in some way, I don't know if it's possible. It's a use case that would be very useful. And second, I just wanted to say, just before Mahesh reacts to what I said, the other thing basically is, Rajesh, there is nothing called non-financial. When we say that, I don't get time to do the things I want to do, and then when you scrape that surface and you say, okay, why don't you get the time? It's because you're busy earning money, right? So ultimately, I think everything is financial. So in the sense that the account aggregator framework helps us put our finances together, I think it will be a big change. But Mahesh, I'm very curious to hear whether the benchmarking idea is possible at all.
Yeah, so it's very hard. I mean, when you speak about the non-financial data, what do you mean by?
No, so it's what I meant by benchmarking is, suppose, people want to see how their peers are behaving, right? So people at this level of income, this is their level of savings. I mean, a very simple thing like that, people who have incomes above this much are saving so much. So he then benchmarks, okay, I'm saving less than the mean, I'm saving, and this is database. I think the key thing is it is database.
Harsh, I don't know whether Mahesh will, come through on that, but the way I'm imagining what you are saying is it's the equivalent of Google Maps, right? As long as I'm willing to contribute my location and what I'm doing, traffic is then being created on that map, saying that is it sparse, is it not, how fast are you moving? So I think anonymized aggregated data, we do what you are saying. How easy is it or how feasible? Now I will let Mahesh, sort of. But one thing which I did want to say is that, to me, the other piece which really is attractive to me is about how health data will be handled, right? There are times when we don't know how to store them such that we can port them with us when we go to a different doctor, hospital, how my insurer will look. And I think that's the next, big sort of and it is linked to finance, as Harsh said, almost everything is. So how I pay for it or whether my insurance company pays for it, but it is about health. And I think if aside wealth is the other thing which dominates the human mind. So to me, those two are health again is something the A ecosystem can really work on and help. Whether it will be the same A's or whether it will be slightly different is probably for us to wait and watch. But it was one I thought I'd add. But yes, Mahesh, over to you. And I can see in the question box, there was something which you have already dealt with.
So, no, actually, I think it is good for the industry, groups to actually come up with those benchmarks I'm not saying that we have to meet that benchmark. All that you will be sharing is how in India, in the salary bracket of whose income is 8 lakhs a year or 4 lakhs a year, how much they're able to save. So I think we always as a country, we are always into our ranking is very important. We want to score high marks. You have to score, like if you want to get, and in this Delhi University, you need to have 100%, marks. So gamification is somewhat important, and the output, the impact of this gamification is, it will, I would say, it will help this, the planners to guide, your clients that I think you are above average, below average, you can go higher up. So, but as long as the Yeah, PII information is not shared, and only the anonymized data is shared. Like I would be okay with it. I think that would be good.
But who would collect that anonymized data?
No, I would say that each planner should have some way to actually share it with ARIA, for example. Okay, because that can actually become the industry body. Okay, to actually publish the the reports, etc., to inform the citizens that for somebody in your age group and your income, like this is how India is actually behaving. Of course, we all still would think we are ranking extremely high unless we see that app which shows the real the actual marks card. Only then we will know about how well we are performing. We all think we are doing good. According to me, that's far from true.
Thanks, Mahesh. And that brings us to the exact 1 hour from when we started, although we had a slight glitch when we started. But we kind of set the pace, and exactly 1 hour since we began our conversation. I'm very, very grateful to both of you, Pramod and Mahesh, to have taken time out to join us, because the reason why I started with both of you is that when it comes to Vishal and Harsh, they are vested in the profession's growth. And now you have come in and you have also shown that you are vested in this profession's growth.
Oh.
So I mean, I have no words to say thanks, but I mean, thanks is the word. Very kind of you, all of you, and happy Financial Planning Day to each one of you.